Hello, YouTube land. We are about to record an episode of Intro to Ghibli, and welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are watching this live, you can talk to us in the chat. I think it's over there. And say hi and any input that you want. I will read it on the screen as it pertains to the episode. Otherwise, if you're watching this later, hey, guess what? There's going to be a cleaned up MP3 over at nimlas.org.
Ding.
Yes, let me just hit my recorder. Last night, marathon recording. Hello, mixed nutcases. Welcome to Intro to Ghibli, Howl's Moving Castle. With me, as always, I have...
Hi, I'm a moving castle. No, it should be Tek's moving castle.
Yeah, Tek's
Hi, I'm
moving.
Tek.
And our guides.
Hi, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jen.
And you both have seen Howl's Moving Castle before. How many times?
I think it's the first time you've asked me how many times I've seen any of these Ghibli movies. I'm pretty sure I've lost count how many times I've seen Howl.
Actually, Howl's one of the ones
enough to feed his David Bowie man. Enough to feed his David Bowie man crush. So plenty.
Oh, hey, dude, I've got a Labyrinth Blu-ray.
Jen.
Howl is one of the ones that I've actually seen multiple times. I'd have to say I've seen it at least 5 or 6.
I asked that because I knew that Jen had watched it again today. She made herself a milkshake too. I want a milkshake. That has nothing to do with anything else except making everybody want milkshakes. So Tek and I, we went and we saw this. I missed the Sunday showing, and we went to the Wednesday not realizing it was a subtitled version, which was really good. I actually enjoy subtitled movies, except we were really tired that day, and it still was really good. So
the one problem with it was a theater that had like powered reclining seats that were very, very comfortable. It's a great way to watch the movie, especially being of slight frame that I am. If I'm in a theater that's got those like spring reclining seats, in order to get it to recline, I have to like hold it back with my legs, and I get a sore leg. But with this, a power reclined the seat all the way back. The problem was that with the seats in full recline, where the subtitles were on the screen was right where the handrail was of the row in front of me. So I'm constantly having to lean to one side or scooch up or scooch down in my seat to read the next line of text. So I don't know. I was either like 6 inches too tall or too short to watch this movie.
There was that. And the fact that we each had about 2 hours sleep, and we were in comfy chairs in the dark. That was interesting.
I may have missed a couple of scenes.
There were a couple of things that I blinked.
Yeah, we got a theater like that. It's called the Pinnacle. It's a wonderful theater. This theater had it not only does it have the reclining seats, but it's got all you can eat like drinks. So once you buy your drink, you can just go back and refill it as much as you want, and that includes slushies. So yeah.
Nice.
Wonderful.
So, but we really enjoyed it. And now we're going to do our 30-second synopsis. And usually Tek does this, and he can still do it, but I am going to do my own 30-second synopsis. What if Terry Gilliam directed a Ghibli movie and it starred David Bowie? That's my synopsis.
Man.
Tek?
My 30-second synopsis is going to have to wait until after more discussion, because I want to talk about this first before because I think the movie's the most surreal, but I don't think it's really what happened. So once we discuss the plot, I'll talk about what really happened, and that'll be my synopsis for the film.
Okay, don't let me forget. So first reactions.
Well, no, hey, we haven't done the cat returns, right?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So our first reactions, I loved it. As I said, we were very sleepy, and it was a subtitled, and there was a bar in front of the subtitles, and yet I was really into it. This, to me, and everyone who had listened to our Princess Mononoke is going, oh no, she hated it. No, this is an art film, but I was really engaged throughout the entire thing because it's still a movie. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. And there were some things that really struck me to my core. I really did enjoy.
I was immediately blown away in the first few scenes with, we talked a lot during Princess Mononoke about how many animators died making those backgrounds and making those sweeping nature shots.
A lot of
just as many animators died in this doing character animations.
The street scenes in the first
town, yeah,
or actually street scenes in the first town and street scenes in the town where the castle is.
The marching troops and the parades and the various like aerial bombardment scenes, or even just the scenes of a busy kitchen with 8 or 9 people moving in different directions, all brilliantly, beautifully animated.
Or
initial reaction from this movie: this is an acid trip. This is incredibly surreal.
Think about the scenes in Howl's Moving Castle when it was dirty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many things that are moving. Any of the wreckage scenes when the house starts to get wrecked and there's pieces falling and crumbling and breaking apart, and it was all incredibly, animators died making this. We honor their sacrifice. But I was taken aback a little bit by it reminded me a bit of Spirited Away with the incredibly stylized characters. Like there's that one scene of the evil witch melting on her way up the stairs.
Yes.
That would have scared the crap out of little Techie had he seen that in theaters.
Or the wizard transformation that Howl goes through in this movie. Like it's monstrous. Like it's obviously, it's not like how in Spirited Away that most of the creatures that are in this don't look dangerous. They just kind of look otherworldly. The wizard form Howl takes, it looks dangerous. It has claws, it has fangs, and it roars. It looks dangerous. It looks built to fight, not just, like we slipped into Alice in Wonderland territory.
Mm-hmm. Really felt like Ghibli's Adventures in Wonderland.
With some
for quite for it, which was played by Calcifer the Little Fire Demon, but impressions incredibly surreal, and I loved the character animations and how people moved in this, and Calcifer, how the fire moved and changed with temperature as he was like eating logs and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
Yeah.
Impressions?
Yes. What were your first impressions when you first saw this?
I can't remember the first time I saw this. So
how about your first impression today when you saw it again?
I was going to say I'm going to have to go with the last impression. There was a lot of things that I noticed watching it this time that I don't remember noticing before. A lot of it was there was a lot of violence. There was a lot of actual like abuse. There was a lot of like little details that you don't really notice right off, but it gives you the eerie feeling.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of grim death in this movie. If you pay attention, like they don't directly show you, but they do show you a city burning because it's been bombed into submission.
Yeah.
And Howl himself is wounded a couple times in this. But my first impressions with this were, it's bright. Like it is, like there are dark scenes, but for the most part, it's all bright. It's literally like we stepped into something from Jim Henson's Storyteller, right? Like, I mean, if this turned into a live action movie made with a bunch of Jim Henson puppets, I'm thinking it's a sequel to either The Dark Crystal or The Labyrinth. Like, I mean, it's just really bright. It's really beautiful, and it's super whimsical, and like you guys said, surreal. Like, I mean, even the town, like the scene in the beginning where she's in, like, which is a really cool, like, contrast because she's sitting in her hat shop and they show from the outside in, and you get another outside view, a reverse view, because you have the street scene with all the people, the different colors, everything going on. Even the military uniforms are like bright blue and red, and they've got epaulets and all this stuff. And then inside, it's a very quaint little hat shop, but you see all these hats. Like, my goodness, how many hats has she been making? But then outside of her window, you actually get to see like the results of some recent attacks on the town or and city, and you get the smoke from the train and the industrialization, and it's a real big contrast between the two scenes with her kind of jammed in the middle. And I think it's actually quite apropos for what this movie is about.
Yeah. Has anyone read the book that this is based on?
No, I didn't learn that this was actually based off a book until, gosh, years after I saw this.
Into trivia, there's a couple of comparisons I can point out.
Okay.
I have not read it, but I think it would be fun to read. So highs and lows.
Highs. I mentioned the animation, the story itself. This is the story of a young woman, a hat maker, who falls for a powerful wizard apprentice by the name of Howl, and he has this really cool sort of a magical castle that sort of has a magical doorway that allows him to flip between. It's like a portal between places in the world, all set around the backdrop of this war between two rival kingdoms, and her relationship with Howl. The story is, well, I can say this now. I've watched enough, and this is typical Ghibli, following a coming of age story of a young teen, a young girl, as she blossoms into womanhood and experiences some pretty powerful emotions of love around this this guy Howl, who's a pretty complicated dude, and the characters that go around it. Lows. Lows, it would have scared little Techie with some of the really stylized animation that he does for his evil characters, with the big faces, the big noses, the like flapping jowls, and the way that
bubbly oil black demon things.
Right, but the way that, well, no, those dudes were kind of cool, but yeah, that would have scared me too. But especially the scene where the two old ladies are racing up the stairs to meet the king. Foot race ever, and one of them is melting under the exertion as she goes. That would have scared the crap out of me. And it's a pretty uncomfortable scene to watch, and I know, and that was the point. Lows, that, and I was a little annoyed with the end, with one character in particular, with the character of the Scarecrow.
Turnip.
Where at the very end it just goes poof. I'm the princess from another kingdom. I'm the prince from another kingdom, and allow me to do my magic. And I don't know. It seemed so lame, so tacked on.
That's
for all of the build that they had for Turnip. As he was going along, where even at one point Howl goes, "Oh, and you, my friend, touch your magic. It's powerful." It's like, oh, there's something cool and special about this guy. This is kind of cool. And then at the end, it's I'm sorry, another castle.
And I like this
that of everything, that's the thing that disappointed me in the movie, because everything else was really cool. It was really fun. It was really beautiful. It was kind of scary. It had a great story, and expecting more out of Turnip.
For me, one of the really big highs is Sophie. And I really can identify with Sophie. She is somebody who is unhappy in her life. She enjoys sewing her hats, but she doesn't enjoy interacting with the people in her world. And even her family, she's kind of an afterthought. And we see later, like her mom ends up tricking her and doesn't even care that she's done it. Yeah, it's totally take me to my husband. Like that's from my other family. I don't need to worry about that. And Sophie, when she's cursed, she's not upset. She's like, "Oh, finally, my clothing makes sense." And at one point she says the good thing about being old is you have nothing to lose. And it gets to a point where, I mean, you realize the only reason she still looks like an old lady is she's decided this. The curse had worn off by this point, and she had been young many times in her appearance. Anytime she wasn't thinking about herself or unaware, she would return to her youthful look. And like, for instance, when she was sleeping and Howl saw her exactly the way she was. And then when she was conscious and aware of herself, she was an old lady. So it ended up being something that she was doing to herself because she was actually more comfortable that way. And she goes to the castle. She doesn't actually have to stay there. She chooses to go there. She chooses to stay there because, oh, well, I can take care of this little boy and I can befriend this fire demon. And, oh, yeah, there's that guy, Howl. Well, let's see what I can do for him. And
who wouldn't want to befriend that little fire demon?
I know. She finds that people are appreciating her here. And I don't know. There's something really neat about the idea that she is bucking conventional ideas of what she's supposed to be and making her life as exactly what nobody wants. Everybody's scared of Howl and his castle. Everybody wants to be young and beautiful. And yet the things that make her happy are being in this scary castle and being an old lady. Really dug that. I loved the David Bowie-ness of Howl.
Especially early on when you know, with the cape and that white and purple V-neck tunic he's wearing and
the walking in the air kind of a thing. Just believe you can do it and we can do it. That was very David Bowie. And even when he has his tantrums and you're like, all right, Howl, chill.
There's really a lot of Goblin King.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a lot of Jareth in there, and I enjoy it. He may not be the best character, and he may not be the best to the people with him. I do enjoy him for what he is. And I don't know. I dig all of the animation. I dig the way that the old lady melted. There's just so much of that really strikes me. I will agree that your prince is from another castle is kind of like tacked on, and I'm sure that there's a little bit more there. So I kind of is a total Miyazaki creation. It has nothing to do with the book.
Oh, wow.
Really goes to his idea of pacifism and in like Porco Rosso. So I really did dig all of those things. But yeah, I think the only, and I love surrealism. I'm a huge fan of surrealism, but I think the only real lows are sometimes I wasn't quite sure why certain things did certain things. I've read some trivia and I've got some answers for that, but I don't want to spoil this review. Highs and lows from you guys?
Go.
You go. Ladies first, go.
No, I'm good. I kind of want to
No, I'm good.
So, highs for me are part of the things that you guys, well, one of the things is the one that you guys kind of don't like. One of the highs for me is Turnip Head. The other, and he's correlated to not only Sophie's curse, but his own. And the reason is because I thought of her curse working in a different way. Because Turnip Head's curse was the traditional fairy tale curse. Only true love can break his curse. Finding his true love can break his curse. For Sophie, because it does not allow her to talk about her curse. It's still based on true love, but it's closer to what Ariel had than what an actual fairy tale curse would be, which is why, if you notice, in most of the times when she actually starts looking her age and actually getting her dark hair back and all that good stuff, it's either when she's being absolutely confident in what she is saying and doing and not just accepting what happened to her, but also having the confidence to confess how she feels about Howl. Because the two scenes, there's 3 scenes where she becomes young: when she confesses her feelings for Howl, when she is sleeping, and when she is, if you notice, she has a lot of in-between states. Like at one point, she actually is standing up and not looking as old, but she's more like, let's say, in her early to mid 50s. Whereas when she first gets cursed, she's probably in her 70s, right? And then there's moments where she's actually standing more upright and she just kind of wrinkled. And she looks, like I said, early to mid 50s and so forth. And those are the moments where she's either coming into her feelings for Howl or confronting Howl about something.
It's really subtle, and there's a bunch of scenes I found myself, looking at the start of the scene. She's an old lady, and then 3/4 of the way through the scene, she's a young woman. She just has gray hair still.
Yeah,
but she's a young woman again.
And then there's times when, she's an old woman. Oh, now she's getting even older and hunching, and now she's, and she'll change in very subtle ways.
Yeah, and it's all based on her behavior, her perception of herself, and her confidence behind what she's saying and doing. My lows are, we don't get enough, in my opinion, of the Witch of the Wastes or Witch of the Wilds and or the Queen, because they talk about having to be I shouldn't say queen, it's not the queen, it's it's the king's second witch, the head witch who's in the wheelchair. Like, we don't get enough of her, and I really like her character. I also like the king, because I love it when later in the movie where Howl transforms himself into king and he's like, Solomon, and he's like, it's really funny. Like, and having Christian Bale's voice doing all that is amazing. Like, it is, or at least most of it anyway. But no, we don't get enough of that part of the world. We get a lot with Howl, his castle, Calcifer. We get a lot with Sophie. We get a lot of the situations around the castle, like with the people and like the propaganda leaflets and
you bring up the King's Witch, and I have to ask a question at this point before we forget, because there's a part of the movie that really bugged me. Bugged, there's a pun there. That why did the witch have to send Sophie's mom to plant a bug in the house to spy on them when she already had her familiar, the little dog, the entire bloody movie? Because
I don't think the familiar was transmitting to her.
And that to me is such a lame cop-out.
Yeah, it's like, why didn't we get a little bit? That's a little backstory we could have used while it was going on.
Like the whole time I'm watching this movie, I had this. Oh, so the witch sent the familiar, and I just automatically assumed that connection was already made, and then later on, it's you're planting a bug in the house. Why? And then it's, oh, well, you haven't reported to me since then. And all we get back is.
I love it. It feels to me like if Snidely Whiplash's dog Muttley,
yeah, exactly,
decided to betray him and love on Penelope, whatever her name was. I can't remember her name. Gosh, my nerd cred. I'm so sorry. But that's what it came out to me, because when you first see him, you're like, oh, he's working.
He's a bad guy.
Yeah, and then you
don't trust him. You're trusting him. Well, and I agree. Also, I want to know more about the witches, the Witch of the Wastes. Her motivations is just, oh yeah, she used up all her magic and she's just stealing it from other people. But no, really, what is her motivations? Why?
She could get her own movie.
Yeah, she could. She really could.
With Ghibli doing lots of spin-offs. I mean, you could do like a whole Wicked type thing, just on the story of the Witch of the Wastes.
Yeah, that would be good.
I'd watch it. That'd be good.
Because I have so many questions. I also like that she's a bit of a cougar, and
we'll get there. We'll get there. Don't. Okay, Jen.
Okay, so the whole peeping thing, like the whole Muttley thing, totally agree with. That was Muttley, okay? The whole peeping bug thing, if she had not fed Calcifer the peeping bug and made him sick, Sophie would never have thrown the water on him and shown him as an actual, like, Sophie would never have freaked out so bad that she realized that it was actually Howl's heart.
Yes,
I think that I feel that Salomon and Turniphead, who was one of my favorite characters, who fell in love with Sophie as an old woman. Mind you, I don't know if with his curse he saw her as a younger person or not. But he fell in love with her as an old woman, so he fell in love with her for who she was in the first place. I feel that they were supposed to have a second movie. It played it into a completely separate storyline that it should have had a second movie anyway. And the whole fact that in the end, which is one of the parts I had an issue with, he says, hearts can change. I shall come back to fight for her, which just means he's trying to steal her away from her true love. Also made me believe that there was a second story. I believe the peeping bug was not to be a peeping bug.
To quote Star Wars, it was a trap.
Yeah, it was a virus.
But and that's exactly what I was gonna get to later, is that I think it's more Sophie in love with Howl than Howl in love with Sophie.
Yeah.
I think Howl was more infatuated with the fact that this is one of the few people on this planet that can go toe to toe with him and deal with his mood swings, deal with his drama, basically to deal with his David Bowie-ness, right? And
he doesn't love her. He loves that she loves him.
Exactly.
And she technically is in love with him because he was her knight in shining armor when the army dudes in the first place were sitting there, harassing her.
And saying, if you think
I like her better when she's scared.
No, that's so creepy. That's such a creepy line. But also, if you think about it, Howl doesn't do a single thing for her when it comes to being like, Sophie, I don't care if you're old or whatever. I like you for who you are. In fact, he continually tries to bring out her verboseness, her attitude, her personality, her confidence, but it's only because of who he is, right? Like he's this, he's kind of like the party animal kind of socialite, and he needs someone like that on his arm. Whereas all her character development and all her change is all from her end. Like she does this all in the pursuit of him.
Yeah.
Well, it's also
her.
It's also
she changes her.
Yes.
She is a nurturer. He is still technically this entire time a child.
Yeah, he's a baby man. Like he's the definition of a baby man. And if you think about it, right? Like
man-child.
Yeah. If you take out Howl, she's falling in love with Turniphead. Like that's who she ends up with.
But see, it's also got a whole different thing. Turniphead the entire time does everything that he can for her. The sweet, he's the kind best friend, and she falls in love with the asshole.
Yeah, and he doesn't try to change her. Like he realizes that she's an old
Turnip is friend zoned so hard.
He really is.
Oh, for Turniphead, because he tries to help her. Like she's doing all this cleaning for this a-hole, right? And so he's like, fine, I'll help you hang this laundry. Like he even guided her to Howl's castle, so she basically didn't die out in the wilds. Because that was what I asked.
I even introduced them, and
yeah, that's the thing. And I said this to Jen earlier. I was like, I think she's accepted being this old lady, and I think she's going out into the wilds to just die. I think she's taking this as her opportunity to be like, you know what? I never went outside of town. I never went and adventured. Well, you know what? I'm going to take a little bit of food and I'm going to go adventure, because she had no other plan. She didn't say
she was 90 years old. I mean,
She didn't have another plan. She was just like, nah, screw it. I'm just go out here and walk around for a while. And what happens, happens. I think it was her.
She said, when you're old, you have nothing to lose. So she had no fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Turnip Head was like, hey, don't kill yourself. There's a place for you to go and you can find a solution here, I'm sure. And
yeah. I think you were saying like she doesn't fall in love with Howl. She's falling in love with Turnip Head. No, I think she's not falling in love with Howl. She's falling in love with herself. And she's getting to know who she really is. Yeah, because so much of the film, Howl's not there.
Yeah, and it's through
it's
her trying to help Howl and do things for Howl that she finds this confidence. He doesn't really
and making a life for herself. It's like, I'm not going to live in this filth. I'm going to clean everything up. Yeah. Oh, so I messed up his hair. I don't care. It's clean.
God, that is probably that's my absolute favorite scene in this movie is when she starts cleaning and she plays the best prank on the little kid. She's like, oh, well, I'm a cleaning demon and you better get upstairs and move anything that you don't want me to clean. And he's like, oh no, my room last. And he runs upstairs and she just cackles. It's great. Like, I love it.
That was actually really great. Yeah.
And it's a great scene too when he's doing the whole like medicine shop thing. And this old man's like, could I come get some medicine? And he's like, come back later. There's a raging witch in there. And she's just it's great. Like, I remember as a kid, like when my aunts would clean, I'm like, oh crap, they're cleaning. And I'm like, I gotta put all this stuff under my bed because if I don't, they'll throw it away. And like it was wonderful. Like, it was absolutely wonderful. And through this whole scene, the animation of it all, like, and you wonder, like, how's the ultimate bachelor, right? He had 2 spoons and a fork and like a cracked plate and some cardboard, I guess, to eat off of. And everything else was just in the sink. And he's like, I'll get to it tomorrow.
And Marco's not allowed to use the stove when he's out of the house. And she's like, no, I got it. No, calcifer won't work for you. Yeah, well, because if you don't, I'll pour water on you.
Or I'll tell Howl. I love how when she tells him, she's like, or I'll tell Howl about our little deal. And he's like, wait a minute, you were sleeping. How do you remember that?
And see, I think that's what got him that time, because she threatens him twice to pour a bucket of ice water on him. Yeah. And he tells her the second time, you can't. If you do that, you're going to kill both of us. Mm-hmm. So it was technically the deal part. He was more afraid of Howl.
And also, when she freaked out, it wasn't because of the fact that it wasn't because of the connection between him and Howl that she was worried. She saved the Witch of the Waste's life. Mm-hmm. Because Calcifer, with this grim death I was talking about earlier, was going to burn her alive. Like, he was going to burn her to death.
Yes. So, moving on, I just have one question. Do you guys think Sophie's a witch?
Oh,
no,
man. For me, it's a toss-up. Because you can say no, and that is probably the easiest route, and it makes sense. But at the same time, she controls Calcifer, whether it's by sheer will or by her manipulation. She also figures people out really, really quickly. She figures out, even without trying, that to get Calcifer to be stronger, stroke his ego a little bit.
Yeah, she should have been a con man.
Yeah, and look how well she's able to string along the Witch of the Wastes. And then when she reverts to that childlike state at the end, she's able to take care of her and still control her.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I mean, if she's not a witch, she's rolling around with some, like, she rolled an 18 on her charisma check, right?
Absolutely. There's I don't think she's a witch because I don't know enough about the world and how you gain your magical powers, or if it's given by birth, or if it's, I don't know, microscopic bacteria floating around in your DNA.
No, that doesn't work anywhere. There's nothing.
Hey, it's all owned by Disney now. It's all canon.
But
Nope.
no,
All owned by Disney.
now I will say this: you're right, Tech, because we only get to know how one person in this entire movie gains his magical powers, and that's Howl, and he does it in the most awesome David Bowie way I have ever seen in my life. Like, it is. If there was anything in this movie that screams David Bowie, it's how he got his powers.
Yeah. Take my heart. It's all good.
Yeah, but it's after he eats a fallen star.
But he had a wizard uncle.
That is true, but he literally sees a star falling to Earth, and instead of just saying, I'm going to make a wish on it, he's like, no, I'm going to go capture and consume this thing. And it would have killed him, but he made the deal with Calcifer, and Calcifer consumed his heart. And that basically fostered and bolstered what little power he already had.
But both of them acted like they didn't remember the deal.
I think it's not.
Well,
I think
it happened so long ago.
I think it was. What I think it was is a part of their curse, like how Sophie can't talk about her curse. Howl and Calcifer cannot talk about their curse, which is their life bond, right?
The first rule of demon curses is you don't talk about demon curses.
Why didn't he consume Calcifer a long time ago?
Because without his power, he wasn't Howl.
I don't think he could.
He needs Howl.
Yeah.
He needs Calcifer to be Howl, and he loves being Howl. He loves being Howl more than anything, which is why he allowed him to consume his heart in the first place. Right?
He wanted the power more than the heart.
Exactly.
And he had no reason to want a heart until meeting Sophie.
Exactly. And if
Howl's Moving Castle, I just thought of a great subline in the text there. Howl's Moving Castle, infinite cosmic power, itty bitty living space.
Excellent. So I think that
Calcifer and Howl never say what is the final ember for Calcifer. Neither of them say it. Even when she douses him in water, he says, Sophie, I'm so weak. Like, and that's all he says. And if you notice, did you guys notice earlier in the movie when he almost goes out and Howl blows on him?
Yep.
It's beating.
I did notice that.
I
I didn't notice that it's beating, but I did notice that Howl was able to bring him back. And I said, is that a heart? So I think that Sophie is not quite a witch, but a natural witch, or has the ability to tap into magic without realizing what she's doing. And her emotions have the control.
Yes, I would actually agree with that. Because again, when she's cleaning the house and goes upstairs, she sees the view and she's like, oh my God, we're up here moving around. Calcifer, is that you doing this? And he goes, of course, who else would it be? She goes, you really are a powerful fire demon. I love your spark. And she kind of gives him a little wink, and he's like, she loves my spark. And he gets all big, and like, I'm like, oh, she just played you.
So she's a big old flirt.
Oh, she did. Oh, it's great.
So, Tek, what is your theory that you want to share with us?
This movie, in its surrealness, was very reminiscent to me of three other movies. So that's Brazil, Sucker Punch, and The Life of Pi. And the thing that those three movies had in common is that there's a story that we see and another story that's happening in behind that's the reality. But the beautiful, artful story that we see in front is the better visual and is the one that we concentrate on, while this other thing is happening in the background. And I think the same thing is happening here in Howl's Moving Castle, that there is a really dull story in the background, but this fantastic story of like wizards and moving castles and dimensional portals and a giant war, but it's a young wizard's apprentice, let's call him Cougar Bait, happens to attract the eye of an older witch, the Witch of the Wastes. And he is strung along as arm candy for this older witch. At the same time, he happens to fall in love with a young hat maker and runs away with the young hat maker, attracting the ire of his evil older cougar, who then goes after the young girl.
Because
then begins a horrible love triangle of your young cougar bait guy, his older cougar girlfriend, who was the best friend of his boss, not to just to make work even weirder, because now you've got your boss after you who's wondering why work got weird because you started dating my best friend, and why did you run away from my best friend with your 15-year-old little chippy hat maker that you found in town the last time you went out to buy supplies, and now I can't find you because you ran off with all of my stuff. And
hey, it's Turnip Head who's pursuing the hat maker too, and who was cursed by the Witch of the Wilds anyway, because he turned her down. He's like, no, you're Howl's lady. I can't be with you. So she curses him. It's a love square.
Tek, continue. Let Tek continue. Go ahead.
And then you've got this other guy, and then you've got the permanently friend zoned guy who's been watching Hatmaker from afar, who, well, you know, for all intents and purposes, because she never cares about what he says and she really just thinks of him as a scarecrow, he might as well be a scarecrow with a turnip for a head, because that's all she sees in him, and friend zoned him hard. But that's a pretty, well, yeah, it's going to be weird to say, that's a pretty typical story. There's nothing fantastic about it. I think that all of Howl's Moving Castle is in Sophie's mind. I think this is the fantastical version of the story that exists in her brain, while this mundane sort of it's just another love triangle where my boyfriend Cougar Bait is being hit on by the best friend of his boss, and I friend zoned the prince from another kingdom in the backdrop of this great big war. I think that all of the fantastic visuals, the castle with the big mouth, the fire demons, the magic, the fact that my boyfriend is a giant bird, I think all of that is an acid trip.
So now
there's my 30 seconds.
That's your 30 seconds.
That took 5 minutes.
Okay.
I think this movie is Brazil. This movie is Sucker Punch. This movie is The Life of Pi. All of the Ghiblis that we've watched so far, if they wanted to make one into live action, I want it to be this one.
So we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and we all decided that David Bowie has to play Howl, but unfortunately he can't do that anymore. Suggestions for castings?
Well, honestly, keep Calcifer who he is. Like I honestly, Calcifer needs to stay who he is. He's just a voice, and he did great. I just you can't beat that. I love that voice acting, by the way.
Who voiced Calcifer in the English voiceover?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you guys. Oh crap! I turned my phone off. Jen, you don't have your phone on.
Because in Japanese, it was a fantastic voice.
Yeah, he was great in Japanese.
But
I'm looking it up. So.
It was he was a comedian, and I cannot think of his name to save my life. But he was great.
Gosh, I hope it's not Gilbert Godfrey.
No.
Oh God.
Oh my God! You could only make it better with Gilbert Godfrey. Oh my God! Like
as Calcifer?
So it's actually Billy Crystal.
Yeah, Billy Crystal.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, that works really well.
Yeah, it was Billy Crystal.
Because I think we got the Japanese Billy Crystal.
Dude, and his and I love his delivery of lines. Like when he's like when she basically is like, no, I'm using you as a stovetop. Clank, cast iron pan, and he goes, fine, well, here's another curse for you, may all your bacon burn. And you're just like, oh, you salty little fire demon, because he wants to be a demon, not a fire demon, because every time someone asks him to do something that heat would be used for, he gets really, really saucy. Like he gets really saucy.
I'm gonna need some hot water. I'm taking another bath. Oh, not that again.
Yeah, he gets super saucy about it. And you're a fire demon. What else would you do? Like, what other than power this house, what else would you be used for? I still feel like, I think we talked about it before. I definitely think the Witch of the Waste could be Betty White, or you could get what's it, Maggie Grace?
Maggie Smith is old Jenny.
Maggie Smith, either old Jenny. I mean, Maggie Smith is either Old Sophie or
Old Sophie.
or the head or the King's.
Yes, she would also work really well as the.
I don't know, for the King's Witch. I saw either. And I got a problem with dead actresses as I cast them, but Candice Bergen or B. Arthur.
Ooh.
What was she in?
Well, Candice is still alive.
Yeah.
But
B. Arthur isn't.
B. Arthur is not. But I think that's actually kind of I think Candice Bergen would really enjoy being cast in the same role that you would put B. Arthur because they're both super feminists.
Now
I think that would be really cool.
Now, if
I'm looking for that for the King's Witch, I'm looking for that sarcasm, and I think the two of them do it so well.
Yeah, they really do.
Now, if she was older,
mm-hmm.
I was thinking of Peggy Bundy. I can't think of her the actress.
Oh, Katie Sagal.
Yes, but as the Witch of the Wilds, the Witch of the Wake.
You could age her up.
Well, she could do that. She could do that very, very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because of how she wants to be young and beautiful, and she wants to be this kind of, she's again, like you said, she's a cougar, and that's what Peggy was in the Married with Children. She was this oversexed kind of middle-aged woman, and she was always, nagging on Al about it. Well, in this case, she doesn't need to nag Al about it. She can just use magic to get whatever she wants, right? And so I think that would work really well. I think she'd be great. I think she'd be absolutely.
I think Katie Sagal's a good choice for that. Yeah, absolutely.
So, young Sophie.
Man.
I don't know. Find somebody.
Any beautiful young lady. Selena Gomez. There you go. She's already played a witch.
You're true. Or you could maybe get Chloe Grace Moretz, maybe.
Oh, okay.
She could do very good. Yeah, absolutely. No one is allowed to say any bad things about Miss Selena. So everybody just shut your yaps.
Oh yeah.
You leave her alone.
He's a fan. So
I don't know what she does. I don't know if she acts or sings or anything, but
she kind of dabbles in both.
Okay, I don't remember.
And fights lupus.
But
and picks the wrong one.
Selena.
Yeah. That's okay. She's better off now. So I've got some trivia. Upon seeing Spirited Away, Christian Bale immediately agreed to play any role in any Ghibli film, or in the next Ghibli film, and he didn't expect to get the titular role. But it was just, I love this. I want to be involved.
Nice.
So I think that's awesome.
It's my favorite role by him. I you know what? He was great as Batman, except for his voice in this. If I knew.
Have you seen American Psycho?
You know what? That's American Psycho is good, but man, him as Howl.
Is that a raincoat?
Again, you guys didn't get to hear him screaming, going, Sophie, what did you do to me? I'm hideous.
No, I haven't. Yeah, I have not seen that.
Oh,
I do need to see that. But
it's worth it if you're not beautiful. Pout.
Life is. What's the point of life if you're not beautiful?
Dude, and by the way, I don't, because you guys don't get it, because Marco, I love his voice actor in this because he plays it well. He's like, during that scene,
you know who that is?
Who is it?
Marco. It's Josh Hutcherson.
What did he?
You may remember him from the Hunger Games, and he's like grown up to be the pretty boy.
Oh, is he pita? Is he pita bread?
Bread.
Is he pita
that
bread?
Actually works really good.
Oh, he's pita bread boy. Oh.
Yeah.
But no, it's great because he's like, because when Sophie's like, what is wrong with him? And he's like, oh, he's calling the demons of the dark. I've seen this before. Last time he did it was when a girl broke up with him. And she goes, oh goodness, melodramatic. Like she just like sighs at him. It's pretty great. Like that whole scene is wonderful.
I'm sorry. I just happened to notice on Josh Hutchinson's IMDb, his mom is Michelle Fightmaster Hutchinson. Fightmaster? That's an awesome name. Yeah.
So is she like a referee? Like is she?
No idea.
I just got stuck with this idea that Howl's Moving Castle must exist. This entire thing would make a lot more sense if it existed in the world of the anime of Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions.
Oh,
they're not really wizards. They just play at being wizards.
That would be so awesome.
Oh man,
Howl needs to meet the Dark Lord Shingen.
Dude, and I love. By the way, we talked about it a little bit, but we didn't talk about it. But Calcifer's consumption, like what he consumes for power,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, when he takes her hair and he's like, "Oh, but your heart or your eyes would be so wonderful."
dude, that's the only time in this movie where he seems demonic, like where he actually seems like the monster that he is, because he's like, Sophie, I could use anything to be more powerful, like your
You keep
eyes.
calling him a monster, but he's not a monster.
He asks to eat her eyes.
No, he said, just think of what I could do with your
Exactly. He goes, I did that with your hair.
Because the bigger the sacrifice, the bigger the power.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mind you, how much does she love her hair? Because goodness gracious.
Yeah.
He literally held together a almost completely disintegrated house. Like he's like,
as the house was disintegrating, I kept changing the name of the movie because it went from Howl's Moving Castle to Howl's Moving Cottage to
Howl's
Moving Deck.
Yeah.
And then at the end when they're like flying away, it's like, oh look, it's Howl's Moving Summer House.
So I did also want to mention the drawing of Howl as his bird figure. That was so beautiful. I think Howl was the sexiest when he was bird. Howl.
And by the way, the bird that he was imitating was a sparrow.
Oh, nice. That is a very near and dear bird to Tek's heart.
Because he had to
swallow.
split his swallow. He had the
Japanese
tail, right?
Yeah, split tail and the pointed knockback wings. He was a barn swallow. So in Japanese, Tsubame.
Can we talk about the dapper monsters for a second with their little top hats? I'm loving it, and their eyes wide shut masks.
Yeah. Did they remind you of like dressed up putties from Power Rangers?
They did. They did. Oh,
if only they made the noise.
They were awesome. Stylistically, I absolutely was in love with them.
Yeah,
they were so cool. And I loved how people melted in this.
Well, I forgot to mention this earlier, but remember when Sophie first got turned, her skin was super saggy and melty, and you see her like pulling at her skin, like, oh my God, I'm old. And then she's like, I'm old. Well,
she basically acted like nothing had changed.
Yeah.
Because that's what she saw herself as. She did not see herself as gorgeous like her mom, who had a lot of attention constantly.
Oh man, her mom
she saw herself as very plain and very just non-noticeable. So being old, she didn't have to worry about getting any attention. She didn't have to sit there and worry about going out and having fun. So she was able to.
She went from being invisible to being even more invisible.
Yeah, she went from being invisible to not having to worry about being invisible.
By the way, did anyone else think that her mother was basically a young representation of the Witch of the Wilds? Like that was what the Witch of the Wilds was when she was younger, and now she was clinging to that with dear life.
Oh yeah,
I can see that. Yeah,
that same type of person, absolutely. Yeah.
So, although the film was not released in the United Kingdom until 23 September 2005, director Hayao Miyazaki personally traveled to England in the summer of 2004 to give a private showing of the film to Diana Wayne Jones, who is the author of the book. Also, by the way, had contact with the studio during production, but didn't have influence or impact. And she said she preferred it that way. She said it's going to be a different story. And that's good because it's a different medium. And she was very excited by the project. Sophie's city was modeled after Colmar, France. So you can actually look up, there's pictures of the city that it was modeled after, and it almost looks like they painted directly over these photos. It was really great.
That's because Miyazaki.
Hayao Miyazaki.
He was going, draw my minions, draw as he clapped.
Hayao Miyazaki and Lauren Bacall, who played voiced the English version of the Witch of the Waste. Both were longtime fans of each other's work and only met at a subtitled screening in New York. Bacall jokingly asked Miyazaki if he was married. Part that I really like. Symbols and metaphors are rampant in the story. The castle is representative of Howl himself, a highly powerful yet disorganized mess with a lot of baggage. The black gateway on the portal dial is the way to Howl's psyche and unconsciousness, or unconscious, sorry, which he keeps to himself. He keeps himself immersed in. Calcifer, the fire, is of course the heart. By the way, it's really cute that the hearth is the heart, which is the same symbol.
The same root word.
Yeah, quite literally. Markle could be understood as the innocent, childlike part of Howl. Sophie starts by organizing things in the castle, wins over Markle as well as Calcifer. At the end, she is able to help Howl finally when the ring Howl gave her leads her to his innermost self, the black gateway on the dial. She visits his past and finally is able to help him reconcile his past, his feelings, his heart to his present state. So one of the lows that I had before I read that is, why is Markle there? Where did he come from? Why is he in this castle? And now I'm like, oh, okay.
He's part of the
It's
castle.
kind of, think about it this way. It's kind of like how Bruce Wayne has Dick Grayson, right? Like,
no, this is better than that.
well, it is better than that, but it's the same premise, right? A powerful man can't seem to not want to help this one kid for reasons, right? And in Howl's case, it's because he reminds himself of his youthful, innocent self, whereas the modern Howl is just a fancy free playboy who wants to flit around the world and have wonderful times with the ladies. And there's a war going on. I'll get to that later.
You were going to say, Tek?
I love that the tradition of how Miyazaki draws mustaches and beards is kept alive in this movie with Markle's old like dwarf. Like he looks like an old gnome.
Yeah,
but that big giant bushy beard that takes up 2/3 of his body,
and no one bats an eyelash. Like they're like,
not
hey,
a thing.
Fantasy World 3D top.
Say again, Jason.
He's a Fantasy World version of ZZ Top. It's fine.
Yes. I think I made a joke like that during the movie. So in the Japanese version, there's one actress that plays young and Grandma Sophie, and in English, it's split between a young lady and Gene Simmons. Not Gene Simmons,
what?
but the actress Gene Simmons.
Oh.
English version, it's two separate actresses, but in the Japanese version, it's one actress.
Japanese voice actors.
Yeah, she does a really good job, by the way. Like you can tell the difference in age from her voice at the same time. It was originally supposed to be directed by somebody else. Josh Hutcherson, who voices Markle, and Jenna Malone, who voices Letty. They ended up working together in the Hunger Games. This is Gene Simmons' last cinema film, which it's the second time that happened.
That's a good way to go out. Like, yeah,
right.
Because you got to think, right? Like, think about it. Right? What's his name? Gomez from Addams Family.
Sean Astin. John Astin. Sean Astin's his son. Sorry.
Yeah, Raul's Julia had to go out on.
Oh, that one. Sorry.
Yeah, Raul Julia.
Yes.
Go out on Street Fighter. Sean Connery had to go out on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah. And what did Megatron go out on? Was it?
Oh, it was Orson.
Oh no,
it was Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. What did
he went out?
Yeah, he went out
the
on
voice of Ultron, but Ultron, but you didn't know it was him because it was so modulated and changed.
Yeah,
and he went out on being really drunk on bad wine commercials.
No, that was long before he passed.
Have y'all looked those up? Have y'all looked those up and watched them?
I have.
Oh yeah.
The wine and the peas.
So good. And the really great. By the way, there is a reenactment of the whole peas thing done by Sherman Sleeves, which is a podcast. Go check that out. It's awesome. But Howl's Moving Castle is actually centered around war, and this is Miyazaki's main message throughout the film. However, interestingly enough, there's no mention at all of war in the novel that the movie's based on. So the struggle of war and pacifism, this is Miyazaki's deal. He likes this, and he put all that in.
Nature and pacifism, those are his two big things.
Yeah.
Awesome female characters.
Yes, and awesome, and children.
So the effects of man on nature and the effects of war are the prime motives of a Japanese director that was raised in the 50s and 60s. You don't say.
You don't say. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And his family's livelihood growing up was based off making parts for the Zero.
Yeah, and let's not forget, he also has a whole environmentalism thing that he throws in there too.
So which company made the Zero, by the way? This is interesting.
Why don't you tell us?
Mitsubishi.
Oh, yes.
That after the war, all of these great companies that we now know of making all kinds of products that we use were in fact military industrial complex companies that after the war had to go into other industries. Mitsubishi, Yokohama, Yamaha, Toshiba,
IBM.
One of the best ones.
There is, by the way, there are IBM service rifles.
No. I have at the school here, I have seen a machine gun, a 50 caliber machine gun with a stamp on the side that said International Business Machine.
Nice. One of the best ones of those also is Nintendo. Nintendo used to be a playing card company.
They go back to the 1800s, making different types of board games and different types of cards and
man.
Only in the 80s did they foray into video games.
As I've been saying for years, Nintendo has a way to always stay relevant, and like from the 1800s. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I love it. So the differences between the film and the book. In the book, Sophie is a witch. And each hat she makes, she whispers things to or talked about the sort of person who wears it and what they would do or experience. And in the process, she was unknowingly casting spells that, along with Howl taking an interest in her, is why the Witch of the Waste came to the shop.
Notice they never explained that in the show as to why the witch found her.
Yeah.
That makes well, I always thought it was because she saw her and Howl floating together because she came in after that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why the witch is scoffing at the hats.
Yeah, my thing is that makes a lot of sense because her line in the English dub is, you're the most tacky thing in here. Meaning every hat is tacky, but you, my dear, are tackiest and you make tacky hats. So that makes a whole lot of sense.
That's like some crazy shade going on there.
It also makes a whole lot of sense when her mother's like, because the shop is not actually Sophie's. It's her mother's hat shop. And her mother isn't doing any work. She's just selling hats. So you're like,
and is the center of attention. Yeah,
exactly. So you're like, she's probably like, you think about it right after you read that, she's not selling the hats. Sophie's spells are probably selling the hats to the people she feels they need to be sold to. And the mother's just kind of the face, right? And so that's why Sophie tells her mother in the beginning of the movie, oh, no. You guys go out and have fun. I'm fine. It's whatever. I'm just going to be making some hats. Like, makes so much more sense.
So Sophie is established as a witch who can talk life into things in the book. While in the movie, it's left up to the viewer to realize this. Some of the moments that make her powers obvious are when Sophie rescues the Scarecrow and he gets deeply attached to her, as well as when her hair gives Calcifer extraordinary strength, even while Howl is absent. Calcifer repeatedly singles her out, confirming that only if it is her performing the action, while he is able to live on and Howl be able to accept his heart back.
Yeah, he says
her to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, he says that. I think it was after she splashed him with water, and she's like, "Come on, Calcifer, you can do it." And he's like, "I don't know, Sophie, but for you, I'll try."
Exactly. Sophie, being a witch, also has a significant power over the witch's curse. Only she doesn't know about it in her sleep while she's dreaming and during deeply emotional moments. When she is upset or happy and completely in love with Hal, she turns back to her younger self, being able to undo the curse by accepting and embracing herself, giving into her own powers. And then there's a whole thing about like she's got multiple sisters and stuff, so that's not important. In the novel, Sophie actually learns she is also has magical powers, and she is the one that defeats the Witch of the Waters along with her own fire demon. So she has her own fire demon. So Howl has one, and she has one. So those are the differences. And let's move on to ratings.
I like that idea. I like that. Now I want to read the book.
Tek?
I get to start?
Yep. I'm hoping you rating it will help me figure out. I'm vacillating between two scores.
I will. So should we talk about our ratings yet again before we go to give our actual scores?
If you'd like, go ahead.
We're using a full 1 to 10 scale here.
Oh yes, let's explain what they mean. Okay,
so a 1 to 10 scale, so that
Well, 0 is horrifying.
So, well, I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Just let me explain. If understand that 5 of 10 is the middle of the scale.
Yeah, that's
so
average.
An average movie would be a 5. And a really, really good movie is a 10. The problem we get in as reviewers, and we see this all over the place, is that everything falls in between 7 and 9. And when I gave a movie a 3, I was nearly lynched. But understand that just means that it's below average.
Yeah.
So let me go again through the scale here. So a 0...
0 is horrifying.
1, dreadful. 2, tedious. 3, boring. 4, mediocre. 5, average. 6, solid. 7, exceptional. 8, 9, penultimate. 10, sublime. And on that note, I will have to give this a 7, exceptional. 7, ignored, friend zone turnip heads. And why? Okay, so I've talked about what I'm looking for in these movies. So all of the Miyazaki stuff is there. The music, amazing. The voice cast in Japanese, amazing. I can't wait to hear the Christian Bale howl. The animators, there's a pile of dead animators on this movie. Amazing. The story is good. The plot is great. Everything is there. And bonus points, it actually has an ending.
It's a really solid ending, too.
It's a really good ending. The movie actually ends. It doesn't just stop like a lot of the other ones. But I'm going to ding it. Spirited Away, the stylization of the characters seemed to work. In this one, it tended to pull me away from it a little bit. And how they tried to, I guess, I don't know, they were running out of money or time, or they're like, man, this movie's already over 2 hours, dude. You got to like wrap this up. Oh, okay. Turnip's a prince from another castle. The war is over, and everybody lives happily ever after. Hooray! So it was an ending, but it wasn't a very good one.
Well, it was a good ending, but there were things that were rushed.
It wasn't a complete ending.
There's still a movie somewhere out there to tie the ends, to put the pretty bows and all the tying.
Yeah, if they wanted to do a movie about Turnip, and if they wanted to do a movie about the relationship between the two witches, I would watch those in a heartbeat. This movie is a perfect example of we've all seen a lot of movies out there that they make franchises out of that they don't need to. This is one of those that like Gone in 60 Seconds doesn't need a sequel. This needs sequels, and a lot of them, and I'll watch all of them if they make them.
Or an animated series. You can get 24, you can get 26 episodes of that bad boy.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, are we going to cover the Ghibli animated series that's on Netflix?
I don't know, what is it?
Amazon Prime.
I have no idea.
Okay,
we'll talk about that later.
Right, ratings.
So, yeah, I'm going to give this an 8.9 David Bowies out of David Bowies.
That's a lot of David Bowies.
That's a lot of David Bowies. Simply because I do think it's quite penultimate, but it's very, very, it's so David Bowie dazzling that it needs those extra 0.9 points there.
I mean,
so,
speaking of Nutty, you just reminded me when you said dazzling.
mm-hmm.
If you wanted to get someone to play Howl, there is one other person who could do it, and he's also dead. Prince.
No, David Bowie over Prince any day.
I don't know, man. They're both fabulous.
One's less of an abuser, and treated him really well. So moving on. Jen, what is your rating?
I'm gonna have to give this 7. May your bacon always burn curses.
Oh, you know me so well. You took. I was gonna say burning bacon curses. Oh, you took it.
It's a wonderful curse.
It's a wonderful curse.
But why 7 out of 10, Jen?
So this story was very solid, as everybody's already said, but it's got a lot of underlying sad things to it. And again, I did not notice these until this last time I watched it. It's got the war that's going on right now. I understand is, very real time for Japan and stuff like that. But it's got the truth behind how a lot of soldiers act. It's got the mother that basically abuses Sophie with respect. It's got Howl is basically a child that was who was traumatized as a child. He has no heart. He lost his heart as a child. He was never able
He gave it up for power.
He was never able to be a child.
Yeah.
And so, little stuff like that, it kind of hits you when you're older and you notice them and you've watched this like 7, 8 times, and you finally actually start seeing them. But if you actually just sit back and enjoy the movie, you've got your animation, you've got your story, you've got, I love Turnip Head. I really do. Until he turned back to a prince and was like, oh, steal her. Nah, that shit pisses me off.
I totally lost interest.
Well, like, if he's like that as Turnip Head, I'm pretty sure he's going to be like that as the prince, though. Now, would you have liked it if Sophie stayed an old woman and he was Turnip Head and they lived together that way?
No.
Young Sophie and Turnip Head?
No. Because
she's not interested in Turnip.
Just Turnip in the backyard holding up the laundry line.
Aww.
Oh, the God.
Of Howl's Moving Castle.
I gotta do his laundry now? Oh, man.
Did you just... I don't think I can say that word on your podcast, but we'll say that. I'll say it offline.
There was no, love story between the two. There was no spark. Like, yes, he comforted her and he took care of her.
He sparked
as much as he could. But
Turnip was James Blunt on a subway looking at a girl singing "She's Beautiful," and it has nothing to do with the girl.
Yeah.
Because I'll never be with you.
Oh man. Can you imagine if this was a musical?
No, I'd rather not.
Oh man.
Music done by James Blunt?
Oh, that'd be dope.
He could play Howl.
Yeah, he could
He's
play
pretty
Howl.
enough.
So Jason, what is your rating?
I gotta give this 8 great and powerful fire demons out of 10. I like this movie. I like Howl's Moving Castle a lot. But again, I feel like once you start getting into animation style and because I have to compare these, because I feel it's unfair to compare anything by Ghibli to anything else other than other Ghibli things, right? Like maybe if you put this up against, say, a Pixar film, that'd be kind of fair if you wanted to compare them, but you have to compare them against one another because they set the benchmark so high. Like, it's just unfair to compare.
There's nothing else out there that does what they do.
Exactly. Like, you can't, don't get me wrong. Back in the day, you could compare, the Bluth films and like those early animated films to one another because they were the only shows out there. But once Ghibli and the Miyazaki stuff came out, like, in a whole nother stratosphere, just like when it comes to CGI movies, you can't really compare anybody to Pixar. You just got to compare Pixar to what they've done previously. So I got to do that. And I feel like,
Incredibles 2.
Yeah, can't wait. And comparing it to the other stuff, it's better than a lot of the Ghibli stuff, but it's not better than some stuff. And some of that is still to come, which is great. So I gotta give it that 8 out of 10, that 8.
So what you have ranked higher, you said that there's other stuff that's better. You have ranked Totoro, Kiki, and Spirited Away higher than this.
Yes.
And everything else you have ranked lower.
And I think what I would say is the reason why is because the female characters in that I like better. I like Sophie. I do. And if they had made her a witch in this, like in the actual book, I probably would have given this a 9.
Yeah, but yeah. I like Sophie, but I like Kiki better.
Absolutely. Kiki,
Yeah.
Hiro, and the sisters from Totoro. Like, I mean, you can't get better than that. You just can't. And coming up we haven't got to that yet, but probably my favorite female character
is coming up. Don't tell us.
I'm sitting here thinking what movies we got coming up.
What's the next one, Nutty?
Our next movie is
Gotta buy that one.
which is not a Miyazaki.
It is.
No, we are done with the Miyazakis.
Well, we're not done with the Miyazakis. We've changed the order so that we don't have a bunch of sad ones all together.
All right.
So this is a Takahata one.
Oh yeah, Mr. Isao Takahata.
As Jason has informed me, most of the sad ones come from him. So
I'm still not watching Grave of the Fireflies.
I'll hold you, Tek. It's fine.
No, you have to hold me.
Okay,
I'll hold you both. I'm big.
Everybody snuggle up to the big bear.
So we give this altogether, we give this a 7.7 out of 10, which is pretty good. And I just want to quickly go over this again. Do that with everyone else on previous casts. Going over your previous scores. So let's see. Your lowest scored was Princess Mononoke. You thought that was average?
Was that Tek or me?
No, Jen.
Oh, you broke up? Sorry. God.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Yeah. So I'm going over previous scores because with Jason and with Tek, with our new quantified scoring system, we've added a description to each of them as Tek read it out before.
So your last, your lowest score was Princess Mononoke at a 5 out of 10. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. And Whisper of the Heart is the next lowest, and that is a solid movie with a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Violin maker.
All right.
Novel writer.
And I'm going to assume all the others because everything else is 7 and above. So just confirming that there. And by the way, for listeners, if you're wondering, where did we get this nice rating system? We totally stole it from Technologic, which is awesome. And it just makes rating things very simple. And so people don't walk out and get really mad when somebody says, well, I found it boring. So.
And if you're a fan of Trek and want to see people want to hear what your group of friends would sound like disassembling every episode of Star Trek of all of the series and do it in character as the crew of the Time Ship Relativity, I recommend you listen to the Technologic podcast.
Yeah, they're quite fun.
It is fantastic.
Yeah, and there's a big backlog. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Next, we will be doing Only Yesterday. I have no clue what it's about other than I'm pretty sure it's sad.
So since we rearranged and that's going to be the next one, we're all going to be virgins for that movie.
Really?
From yesterday, because From Yesterday has only just been released in America. It has been out in Japan for quite a while, but this release here in America is its first. And so
cool.
I will be watching this for the first time when I see it for the podcast.
And I assume same for Jen?
Yep.
Oh, excellent.
And then, so the next three, we've got Only Yesterday, Pompoko, and My Neighbor the Yamadas are the next three.
Yes. And My Neighbor the Yamadas. What?
So it goes Only Yesterday, Pompoko, and then My Neighbors?
Yep.
Yes.
Ooh, you might. I don't know how Only Yesterday is gonna be, but you'll definitely need My Neighbors the Yamadas to follow up Pompoko. Ooh, baby.
Oh, goody.
For a movie with such a cheerful and upbeat sounding name like Pompoko, I'm assuming I should get a box of Kleenex for this one.
This movie has scarred me for life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, really? It's a Miyazaki. It's supposed to be happy.
Laugh.
I don't know if
I'm not joking.
Like I don't know if I'll be able to force her to watch this again. Like she's only seen
Jen
it.
does not have to watch it again if it's scarred her for life.
She's only seen it once.
Jen sees it every time she drives down the road.
Oh, slight spoilers.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Again,
this has scarred me for life.
that's why I said it. I think I said it in an earlier podcast. That's why they only let Isao Takahata off his leash every few years, like every 6 or 7 years. Because that dude, when he gets let loose, he's like, yeah, let's do this. And he starts crippling people's emotions. Like, I mean,
you guys feel bad about the firebombing of Tokyo? No, you don't. Not yet.
Not enough.
Let
But
Takahata out of his cage. We can do this.
yeah, but you will. You want to feel sad? You will.
Oh, okay. I just saw it's that's the raccoon one.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Waiting for the raccoon one. All right.
Oh, yes.
Because you guys talked about it on your show years ago, and ever since I'm like, I can figure out what this raccoon movie is.
Well, no. And what's really great is that
There was
what's really great is that there's actually I don't know if this is like the first in history, but there's 2 raccoon movies we talk about.
Okay, so Ponyo is also a raccoon movie, yeah?
No.
The
Ponyo
other,
is
the other raccoon movie that we kept talking about was Pelts.
yeah, it was a horror movie.
Oh, yeah, no. This is yeah.
Ponyo is Little Mermaid. Miyazaki's take on Little Mermaid.
Oh, okay. So anyway, thank you for joining us. We rambled off. We do that. But join us for Only Yesterday. We'll let you know when we see that. Thank you, everyone. We've enjoyed this, and is there a name for Ghibli fans? Like, because whatever it is, I'm definitely a Ghibli
Fire
fan.
Demons.
Fire Demons.
Great and Power. No, Great and Power. You gotta say the whole thing. It's like a name. It's like a Tribe Called Quest. You gotta say the whole thing.
We're great and powerful fire demons. That's the name for Ghibli fans. Okay.
I mean, we were squiggly tentacle monster demons. I mean, that happened.
That's not specifically Ghibli. We're a bunch of cute little girls.
They actually have a bunch of suggestions out. They don't have a set name. They have a bunch of suggestions out. No Facers, Totoros, Gibblers, Giblets, Giblevers, Giblonians, Ghibli Sprites, Giblets, Giblatos, Giblets. Yeah.
Jabronis?
They don't have
No, that's something else. I'm going to put my vote in for either Totoros or Giblets.
Yeah, I go with giblets. I like that
Giblets,
one.
yeah, I like that.
There's a pun there.
I would say we're giblets and gravy.
No.
Oh.
No.
Only if you want me to be.
Oh boy. Thank you, everyone. Good. You can find us at nimless.org, and you can find our guides at talknerdytomepodcast.com. V2 is the number 2, and you can listen to their regular show. You can also listen to Nutty Bites by going to nimless.org. But enjoy, and we'll be back for Ghiblicast. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Your fans are gonna curse you, Nutty. By the way,
For what?
Because you're gonna make them watch Grave of the Fireflies. Like,
They don't have to watch it. They can just listen to our experience.
it is like I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like,